All right, let's get right into it. Today, we're looking at an attack that completely shattered the line between the digital world and our physical one, turning everyday devices into actual weapons. This is the story of the Hezbollah pager attack, and believe me, it tells us so much about the future of warfare.
So, picture this. It's just a normal Tuesday afternoon in Lebanon and Syria. Suddenly, thousands of pagers all go off at once, signaling a new message. But when people look down to read it, the devices just exploded, right in their hands.
Now, this was no accident. This wasn't some random malfunction. It was a perfectly timed, meticulously planned operation. And it was designed to do one thing: sow chaos, inflict maximum damage, and create this deep sense of vulnerability across the entire region.
What's just incredible here is the precision of it all. The first wave hits at exactly 3:30 p.m. Just a few hours later, you've got 150 hospitals completely overwhelmed. And then, almost 24 hours later to the minute, a second wave hits, this time targeting walkie-talkies. You see, this wasn't just a single attack. This was a coordinated campaign.
The immediate human cost was, well, it was devastating. 42 people lost their lives. And it's so important to point out that 12 of them were civilians, including 2 children. It's just a stark reminder of how indiscriminate an attack like this really is.
And beyond the tragic deaths, you have nearly 4,000 people injured. These explosions were specifically designed to cause horrific personal damage, wounds to people's faces, their hands, their eyes. The psychological trauma that comes from something like that, you can't even begin to measure it.
So, the big question is, how on earth was this possible? How did this piece of technology, something that feels so outdated, become a weapon in modern warfare? Well, the answer lies in what you could call the perfect Trojan horse strategy.
You know, the whole attack hinged on exploiting what was seen as a strength. Just a few months before, Hezbollah's leader had actually told his members to get rid of their smartphones because he was worried about Israeli surveillance. He told them to switch to pagers, thinking they were a more secure, kind of off-the-grid option. And that one decision, well, it created the perfect opening.
And this just shows you the incredible patience and complexity behind the whole operation. This wasn't something they came up with overnight. This was apparently a plan a decade in the making. First, they identified the need. Then Israeli intelligence somehow infiltrated the entire supply chain of these gold Apollo pagers. They embedded a tiny amount of PTN explosive right into the batteries. Then the compromised devices were sold to Hezbollah through a whole network of front companies, completely hiding where they came from. After all that was left to do was send the signal.
So it's really no surprise that security analysts were just floored by this. They immediately recognized how sophisticated it was. I mean, it was a masterclass in how to infiltrate a supply chain and turn a tool that people trusted against them, and on a massive scale.
An attack like this really forces us to take a step back and ask a really big question. We throw around the term cyber warfare all the time, right? But what does it actually mean when a digital signal can cause thousands of real physical explosions?
Okay, so here's the textbook definition. It's about using digital attacks to cause significant harm. For a long time, we all thought of that harm as being virtual, deleting data, crashing a network. But the pager attack is just this terrifying example of how that harm can jump right across the screen and become brutally physical.
If you look at the modern cyber arsenal, you can see exactly where this attack fits in. It is a textbook example of a supply chain attack, kind of like the big SolarWinds hack. But it's the goal of the attack that makes it a cyber-physical weapon. It's all about using a digital trigger for real-world damage. And that way, it's a bit like the Stuxnet virus that damaged those Iranian centrifuges. It's this combination, the slick supply chain infiltration with a physically destructive endgame, that makes this such a dangerous new chapter in conflict. And this, of course, leads us to a huge problem. The traditional rules of war, things like the Geneva Conventions, they were written for soldiers and tanks on a physical battlefield. They just were not designed for the kind of anonymous, borderless, digital warfare we see today. So, if this is the new front line, a front line that can literally be anywhere, how are countries and big organizations even trying to defend themselves?
The legal hurdles are just massive. Attackers can hide behind all these layers of proxies and servers, which makes figuring out who's responsible, what they call attribution, a total nightmare. And then you have these big questions. Is wiping a country's financial data an act of war? What about shutting down a power grid? International law just doesn't have clear answers, and that creates this really dangerous gray area.
Because of all this,
Military strategies have had to evolve. The U.S. Department of Defense, for instance, isn't just focused on building digital walls anymore, what they call active defense. Now they're all about proactive defense, or defending forward. This means they're actively hunting for threats in their adversaries' networks to try and stop attacks before they can even launch.
And look, this isn't just about military targets. The real front line today is our civilian infrastructure. Agencies like the EPA are ringing the alarm bells about cyber attacks on public water systems. The goal for an enemy isn't just to win a battle anymore, it's to cripple an entire society.
This is exactly why the private sector is on such high alert. Gartner is predicting that by 2025, almost half of all organizations on the planet will have been hit with a supply chain attack. It means security isn't just about your own firewalls anymore. Your security is only as good as the weakest link in your entire network of partners and suppliers.
Now, to really grasp how significant this pager attack is, we need to zoom out and put it into the context of the much bigger and, frankly, much more worrying risks we're all facing.
According to a World Economic Forum survey of more than 1,000 global experts, well, the outlook for the next 10 years is pretty bleak. As you can see, a huge majority expect the world to be turbulent or stormy. Only a tiny fraction, just 11%, think things will be calm or stable.
And here's why they're so worried. The biggest long-term risks are this potent mix of environmental crises and runaway technological threats. You've got misinformation and the dangers of AI right up there with existential threats like climate change.
But here's the crucial thing. These risks don't happen in isolation. They're all interconnected. So just imagine a major cyber attack taking down the power grid right in the middle of a record-breaking heat wave. One crisis just makes the other one infinitely worse, and you get this potential for a cascading failure of all our essential systems.
So, when you look at it that way, the pager attack was a truly chilling wake-up call. It proved that the front line of modern conflict isn't some distant battlefield anymore. The front line is the device in your pocket. It's the car you drive. It's the unseen systems that bring you water and power. The new front line is, quite literally, everywhere, and that leaves us with the defining question of our time. Are we ready for it?